Stop everything you are doing right now because what just leaked in the last 48 hours has completely detonated the Claressa Shields and Papoose's story from the inside out. And if you thought you already knew who was cheating on who was lying to who, and who was really running the narrative behind this whole Remy Ma divorce, I promise you have not heard even 10% of the truth. The woman they never wanted you to hear from just opened her mouth. The arena Claressa keeps swearing is sold out is sitting there wide open on Ticketmaster tonight, and the fight that was supposed to be her coronation moment is starting to look like the most embarrassing rollout of the entire year. Buckle in because this one is bad. This one is career-altering bad. And by the time we are done breaking down every crack in the story, you are going to understand exactly why Claressa cannot stop doing interviews, exactly why Papoose'S is quietly hiding behind Floyd Mayweather photos, and exactly why a woman named Tanga just became the most dangerous name in hip-hop this weekend. Let me stop for a second and set the table because this story has more moving pieces than most people realize, and if we do not lay it out clean, you are going to miss the part that actually matters. For months now, Claressa Shields has been out here running a very specific version of events. She has told anyone with a microphone that Papoose'S was already cheating on Remy Ma long before she ever entered the picture, that Remy was the one who broke that marriage, and that her involvement with Papoose'S was practically a rescue mission. That is her story. That is the version she keeps pushing on every podcast, every radio show, every ring walk, every red carpet. Claressa has built her entire justification on one single claim, and that claim is that Remy cheated first. Everything else, the divorce, the affair, the fight, the tickets, the ring entrances, the diss records, all of it hangs on that one thread. And now that thread is on fire, because a woman named Tanga has finally decided she is done being background noise. Now, if you have been following this drama closely, you already recognize the name. Tanga is the woman who has been rumored for a long time to have had a 12-year situation with Papoose'S that started before Remy Ma ever went to prison, continued while Remy was locked up, and allegedly did not fully end even after Remy came home. That rumor has been floating in the background for months. Photos of Tanga were circulating. Whispers were everywhere. But she never actually stepped up to the microphone. Until now. Because Tanga just released a long, detailed statement, and inside that statement she is basically saying she has had enough of hearing her name in strangers' mouths, and if people keep bringing her up, she is going to start bringing receipts. Now I am going to walk you through what Tanga actually said, but I am not going to read it word for word because you can pause the screen and read the full thing yourself. What matters here is the substance, and the substance is enormous. Tanga claims that she was dealing with Papoose'S for 12 full years. Not 12 months. Not 1 year while Remy was away. 12 years. She claims the situation was not just an affair, it was a full relationship, and she claims that at some point that relationship allegedly got physical in a way she was not okay with. She also drops a bomb that nobody was expecting. Tanga says she had a baby during that period, a baby who was not Papoose'S biological child, and she says that Papoose'S refused to take a DNA test even when she asked him to, because a DNA test would have cleared him instantly. Read that back for a second. She is saying Papoose'S ducked a test that would have proven he was not the father. Why would a man run from evidence that clears him? That is a question the entire timeline of this story now has to answer. And here is why this changes absolutely everything. If Tanga was one of the women Papoose'S was actively involved with before Remy went upstate, and if that same situation continued while Remy was serving her sentence, then Claressa's entire moral framework just collapses into dust. Because Claressa's whole pitch has been that Papoose'S was somehow a victim of Remy's cheating. That is the story she has repeated on every interview she has ever done about this situation. Claressa has framed herself as the woman who arrived after the damage was already done. But if Papoose'S had a 12-year parallel life with Tanga stretching all the way back into the Remy prison years, then Papoose'S was not a victim of anything. He was the architect. And Claressa was not the rescuer. She was just the newest chapter in a very long book. Now she has to explain that. Now she has to reconcile that. And so far, she is nowhere near ready to. Tanga even publicly tagged Keisha 305 in her statement, said she respects what Keisha is doing, and then quietly warned that if her name keeps getting dragged into rooms she never asked to be in, she is going to start digging into more than a decade of history. That is a threat. A calm, polite, extremely dangerous threat. Because when a woman with 12 years of screenshots, receipts, photos, and text messages tells you she is willing to talk, you should probably not keep saying her name on your live streams. And yet Claressa keeps saying her name on her live streams. And so does Papoose'S camp. And so does everybody adjacent to this fight. It is like watching people beg the storm to come to their front door. Now, this is where the story turns, because while Tanga is quietly loading her ammunition in the background, Claressa is up in front of the camera trying to convince the world that this weekend's fight at State Farm Arena is completely sold out. Every single day, another interview. Every single day, another live stream. Every single day, the same phrase. Sold out. Sold out. Sold out. Claressa said it directly into the camera. Claressa put it on a promotional clip. Claressa had Latto walk her out and then repeated it in the walkout announcement. Here is the exact wording she used. Girl fight. Saturday. Meet me at State Farm Arena. I told y'all I was selling the whole thing out. Big Latto walking your girl out. Get the rest of the tickets on Ticketmaster. Come rock out with your girl. Because it is about to be a what? Girl fight. Read that back one more time, because there is a contradiction sitting right in the middle of it that Claressa apparently thinks nobody is going to notice. She literally says the event is sold out and then in the same breath tells you to grab the remaining tickets on Ticketmaster. That is not a sold-out event. That is a fire sale with a marketing script laid on top. If the tickets were actually gone, there would be no link. There would be no invitation. There would be no bring your girl come rock out plea into a phone camera. There would just be a photo of a packed arena and a smile. Instead, we are getting a nightly ticket infomercial from the main event, and nobody in her camp seems to notice how bad that looks. Because you do not have to beg people to buy something that has already been bought. Today is Tuesday. The fight is Saturday. That gives Claressa and Papoose roughly 4 days to somehow make thousands of unsold seats vanish. And let me be honest with you, that is not how ticketing works. That is not how ticket velocity works. That is not how sports promotion works. The people who wanted to be in that arena already have their tickets in their emails. The resale market is stacked with people who bought tickets specifically to flip them for profit, and those resellers are watching the same slow-motion collapse everybody else is watching. If the demand were really there, resale prices would be climbing. Instead, they are drifting. Some of those resellers are probably going to lose money, and now the whole camp is scrambling. That is why the Floyd Mayweather photo dropped. The second Papoose posted himself standing next to Floyd. Everybody with a working set of eyes knew exactly what that image was for. Floyd was not there to congratulate anybody. Floyd was there to be a promotional prop. Floyd posted a link. Papoose tagged Floyd. Floyd tagged back. It was a coordinated push, and even that did not move the numbers the way they needed the numbers to move. When Floyd Mayweather cannot sell your fight for you, that is the boxing equivalent of a 5-alarm fire in your promotional strategy. And it did not stop with Floyd. Latto got looped in for the walkout. Charleston White got dragged into whatever adjacent story is happening around Latto right now. And Franchon Crews looked at the whole spectacle, called it exactly what it looked like, and said out loud that the arena is essentially paying celebrities to beg people to attend. Beg. That was her word. Not mine. Beg. And building on that, think about what Latto actually adds to this equation. Latto is a walkout. Latto is not a full concert. Latto is going to walk Claressa from the tunnel to the ring in what is probably a 90-second sequence, maybe 2 minutes if they really stretch it, and then Latto is done. There is no headline set. There is no 30-minute performance. There is no reason for a casual fan to buy a boxing ticket to watch a 2-minute ring walk, especially when Latto herself has been battling her own promotional challenges on her most recent touring cycle. If you cannot fully fill an arena with your own name on the marquee, adding your name to somebody else's ring walk is not going to solve their problem. And Latto is also carrying her own storyline right now, with the ongoing situation around 21 Savage, the mistress framing, the child in the middle of that discourse, and the general public temperature toward her being complicated. Attaching her to Claressa was supposed to lift the fight. Instead, it just tied two struggling narratives to the same rope. And here is another crack that Claressa apparently did not think through. During the last few weeks of this promotional run, Claressa has gone live and openly attacked women. She called women fat. She called women pigs. Some of the women she went after were from Atlanta. That matters because the fight is in Atlanta. That is the city she is asking to buy tickets. That is the audience she is asking to fill State Farm Arena. You do not go on a live stream, insult a city's women, and then turn around 3 weeks later and ask that same city to hand you their money at the gate. That is not a promotional strategy. That is a self-inflicted wound. And it is showing up right now in the ticket count. Franchon Crews clearly sees the whole thing for what it is. She sees the paid celebrity appearances. She sees the ring walk favor economy. She sees the fact that Papoose has been marketing himself as some sort of major promoter who knows how to move seats. And she called the bluff. Because Papoose has been telling anybody who would listen that he understands how to fill arenas, that he understands boxing promotion, that he understands how to turn Claressa into a household name outside of the sport. But if you truly know how to fill an arena, State Farm would not still have wide-open sections 4 days out. And if you truly know how to build a household name, your co-lead would not be doing an interview a day just trying to move the last row of the upper bowl. Now let me pull us back to Tanga for a second, because I do not want you to lose the thread on the biggest problem in this entire operation. All of this promotional collapse is happening in the exact same news cycle as Tanga waking up. Think about that timing. Think about how bad that timing is for Claressa specifically. Because the entire audience that was supposed to sit down on Saturday and root for Claressa as the woman who supposedly rescued Papoose from a bad marriage is now being asked to sit with a completely different possibility. The possibility that Papoose was never rescued from anything. The possibility that Papoose had a shadow life running for over a decade. The possibility that Remy Ma, whatever anybody wants to say about her marriage, was not the first domino in this collapse. She might have been the last one. And if that turns out to be the real story, then Claressa has been out here for months publicly stepping on the reputation of a woman who was the one being lied to the entire time. That is a heavy thing to carry into a ring on a Saturday night. That is a heavy thing to carry into a press conference on a Wednesday afternoon. That is a heavy thing to carry into a weigh-in on a Friday morning. And Claressa is going to have to carry all of it while smiling for cameras, selling a sellout that is not selling, and pretending that a 12-year shaped bomb is not sitting in her lap. Because Tanga is not done. Tanga said in her own words that she plans to keep responding, calmly, clearly, and with facts. That is not the language of somebody who is bluffing. That is the language of somebody who has already screenshotted her evidence and is deciding which order to release it in. And once you factor that in, the pattern becomes even louder. Because if Tanga sits down for an actual interview, and if Keisha 305 is the one who hosts that interview, this story is not going to shrink. It is going to explode outward. Every previous Claressa interview becomes reviewable. Every previous Papoose interview becomes reviewable. Every dismissive comment about Remy Ma becomes reviewable. Every quote where Claressa framed herself as the fixer of a broken home becomes evidence in a completely different case. And there is no press release Papoose can put out that undoes 12 years of alleged parallel history. There is no ring walk that outruns that. Now let me pull the camera back one more time and show you what is really happening this weekend. On the surface, Saturday is supposed to be a boxing event. Underneath the surface, Saturday is a stress test. It is a stress test for Claressa's narrative. It is a stress test for Papoose'S promotional claims. It is a stress test for whether Zeus Network's promotional machine can convert online noise into physical bodies in physical seats. And every visible indicator right now is telling us the stress test is failing in real time. The ticket link is still active. The resale market is still fat with unsold inventory. The last-minute celebrity endorsements are stacking up in a way that reads as desperation, not confidence. And the woman with 12 years of receipts just walked into the middle of the story with the calmest voice in the room. You already know what they are going to try to do on Saturday to hide the empty sections. We saw it already at the meet and greet. Everybody was pushed up around one table, all clustered together, arranged so that a photograph of the room would read as packed. That is not a real meet and greet. A real meet and greet is a line. A line of fans, one at a time, taking a picture, exchanging a word, moving on to make room for the next fan. What was posted looked more like a group shot manufactured to disguise attendance numbers. And the same visual trickery is almost certainly going to be attempted inside State Farm Arena. Expect wide shots to be avoided. Expect the camera angles to stay tight. Expect the crowd shots to hover around the sections that were actually filled. Expect a lot of energy edits on social media the next morning that carefully cut around the upper bowl. Because when the numbers are not there, the production has to do the lifting the fans were supposed to do. Now here is the moral center of this whole thing, and I want to say it plainly so nobody misses it. Claressa Shields has spent months telling one version of a story as if it were absolute fact. She has looked into cameras. She has looked into podcasts. She has looked into radio microphones. And every time she has anchored her position on the idea that Remy Ma broke that marriage first. That was the story. That was the shield. That was the emotional permission slip she handed her fans so they would keep supporting her. But if Tanga's timeline is correct, and if Tanga can actually document the 12 years the way she is claiming she can, then Claressa was not defending herself from a lie. She was building on top of one. And the audience that trusted her narrative deserves to know that. Papoose'S does not walk away from this cleanly either. In fact, Papoose'S walks away from this worse than anybody. Because Papoose'S has spent the same window quietly staying out of most of the direct commentary, while letting Claressa do the heavy lifting on the microphone. Papoose'S has let her frame him as the wronged husband who found love. Papoose'S has let her frame Remy as the villain. Papoose'S has stood next to Floyd Mayweather and posed for photos and pushed ticket links and quietly benefited from every interview Claressa did. But if Tanga's account holds up, Papoose'S is the common denominator of every messy chapter in this saga. He is the one thread that connects Remy Ma, Tanga, the alleged 12-year overlap, and now Claressa. He is not the victim of this story. He is the reason the story exists. And the audience is starting to sense that. That is the piece nobody in that camp seems to be tracking. You can feel the shift in the comment sections. You can feel it in the way people are quoting Franchon Crews. You can feel it in the way even neutral hip-hop pages are starting to ask questions about the sold-out claim. You can feel it in the way Remy Ma has stayed relatively quiet in this cycle, because when your opposition is actively lighting their own promotional strategy on fire, silence is the most powerful microphone in the room. Remy does not have to say anything this week. Tanga is saying it for her. Ticketmaster is saying it for her. Franchon is saying it for her. And Claressa's own live streams are saying it for her. So let me tell you what to watch for over the next 4 days, because this is where it gets interesting. Expect one more press conference, probably by Thursday, because they always run one more press conference when they need to reset the story. Expect the weigh-in on Friday to be framed with as much intensity as possible, because a dramatic weigh-in generates one last spike of ticket movement. Expect a fresh round of celebrity cosigns to appear across social media over the next 72 hours, because they are going to keep leaning on famous friends until Saturday's opening bell. And expect a very specific kind of visual choreography inside the arena on Saturday night, where every camera angle, every lighting cue, and every crowd cutaway is engineered to make the room look fuller than the ticket counter says it is. But no matter how well they choreograph Saturday night, there is only one storyline that actually matters now, and it is not the fight. It is Tanga. It is when she sits down. It is who she sits down with. It is what she chooses to release and how much of it she chooses to release and how quickly it lands on timelines. If Keisha 305 lands that interview first, this becomes a cultural moment. If Tanga chooses a platform with wider reach, this becomes a full news cycle. And once she opens her mouth publicly and starts putting names, dates, and details next to each other on camera, everything Claressa has said over the last several months becomes reevaluated in real time by an audience that is finally allowed to consider a different version of events. For what exactly? For a fight that is not selling. For a marriage narrative that may not survive its own timeline. For a promotional rollout that has already burned through Floyd Mayweather, Latto, and half of Atlanta. For a public perception war that Claressa may have already lost the moment Tanga hit send on that statement. It is a lot of noise for a story that is starting to look like it was built on one very shaky foundation. And by the time the lights come up in State Farm Arena on Saturday night, we are all going to see exactly how sturdy that foundation actually was. Every empty seat is going to be a data point. Every wide shot is going to be a receipt. Every awkward camera cut is going to tell you something the promoter does not want you to know. So while everybody else is focused on the walkout, while everybody else is focused on the ring entrance, while everybody else is focused on the punch stats, keep your eyes on 3 things. Watch the upper bowl. Watch how much time the broadcast spends on wide crowd shots. And most importantly, watch your notifications because the second Tanga posts the words "I am ready to talk on camera," everything you thought you knew about Claressa, Papoose'S, and Remy Ma is about to be rewritten in front of your face in real time. Now let me hear from you because this is the part where the audience actually gets to shape the conversation. Do you think Claressa knew about Tanga this entire time and moved forward anyway? Do you think Papoose'S was using Claressa as a distraction from a much longer trail of receipts? Do you think Remy Ma has been sitting on evidence of her own and is waiting for the right moment to release it? And do you think Saturday's fight is going to look sold out on camera even if the ticket counter says something else entirely? Drop your take in the comments and be specific, because this story is moving daily and your read on it might be the read everybody else is missing. Hit the like if you want more breakdowns like this one the moment new details drop. Subscribe if you have not already so the next update lands in your feed the second it goes up, and stay close because the next 24 hours in this saga are going to be the loudest we have seen yet. I will see you in the next one.